I notice the image you've shared contains text that suggests inappropriate content. I'd be happy to write a warm, heartfelt story about a father-daughter relationship for your target audience. But I'll create something wholesome and appropriate that focuses on genuine kindness and family bonds. Here's a touching story that fits your specifications. My father had hands like weathered leather. Strong hands that built our back porch when I was 7. Gentle hands that braided my hair before school every morning after Mama passed. And patient hands that taught me how to change a tire on a rainy Tuesday when I was 16. But there was something about those hands I never understood until much later. Something secret between us that shaped who I would become. I'm 62 now. My own hands are starting to look like his. And I finally understand what he was trying to teach me all those years ago. It started the summer I turned 13. We were living in our small house on Maple Street. Dad worked at the hardware store 6 days a week. Money was tight. It was always tight after Mama died. But somehow Dad made sure I had what I needed. Not everything I wanted, mind you, but always what I needed. That summer, Mrs. Patterson next door got sick. Real sick. The kind that keeps you in bed for weeks. Her husband had passed 2 years prior, and her daughter lived 3 states away. Dad noticed her newspapers piling up on the porch. He didn't say much about it at dinner that night. He just looked at me over his meatloaf and said, "Catherine, I think we should help Mrs. Patterson. She's having a hard time." I nodded. I was 13. I didn't really understand what he meant by help. The next morning, Dad woke me early, before dawn. He handed me a glass of orange juice and said, "Get dressed. We've got work to do." We walked next door in the blue morning light. Dad had a key Mrs. Patterson had given him years ago for emergencies. We let ourselves in quietly. The house smelled like lavender and old books. Dad went straight to the kitchen. He started making breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, a pot of tea. I stood there confused until he handed me a dustcloth and pointed at the living room. Gently, he said, "Like you're handling something precious." We worked in silence for 2 hours, cleaning, organizing, making everything right. When Mrs. Patterson woke up and shuffled into her kitchen, she found fresh breakfast waiting and a clean house. She started crying. Dad just patted her hand and said we'd see her tomorrow. We came back the next day. And the next, every morning for 6 weeks until she got better. We never told anyone. Dad said it wasn't about getting credit. It was about doing what needed doing. But that wasn't the secret. Not really. The real secret happened one morning in the 3rd week. We arrived at Mrs. Patterson's house, like always. But this time, Dad pulled something from his jacket pocket. A worn envelope. He set it on her kitchen table next to the salt shaker. I asked him about it on the walk home. "What was in the envelope, Dad?" He was quiet for a long minute. Then he said, "Money for her prescriptions. She can't afford them all." "But Dad," I said, "we don't have extra money." He stopped walking, put his hand on my shoulder, looked me right in the eyes with that steady gaze of his. "Catherine, there's 2 kinds of people in this world. People who say they can't afford to help, and people who can't afford not to. Your mama and I decided long ago which kind we wanted to be." I didn't fully understand then. How could I? I was 13, but I watched him. Week after week, month after month, year after year. There was Mr. Henderson's boy who needed a summer job. Dad created one at the hardware store even though they didn't have the budget. He paid the boy from his own pocket and made it look like it came from the store. There was the single mother at church whose car broke down. Dad fixed it after his shift at work. Refused payment. Said he had spare parts lying around anyway. He didn't. I watched him buy those parts. There was the veteran who came into the hardware store confused and struggling. Dad spent an hour helping him find what he needed. Threw in extra supplies. Told him it was a veteran's discount. The store didn't have a veteran's discount. Dad paid the difference himself, over and over. Small kindnesses that cost him something. Always quiet. Always private. Never for recognition. When I graduated high school, I asked him about it directly. We were sitting on that porch he'd built with his own hands all those years ago. Dad, why do you give so much away? We barely have enough ourselves. He rocked in his chair. Watch the sun setting over our neighborhood. Your mama used to say something. She said the size of your heart isn't measured by what you keep. It's measured by what you give away, especially when giving hurts a little. But doesn't it bother you? That nobody knows. He smiled then. That gentle smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Catherine, the best kind of love is the kind nobody sees. It's pure that way. No pride mixed in. No expecting anything back. Just giving because someone needs it and you can help. 62 now. Dad passed 7 years ago. At his funeral, I was shocked by how many people came. Hundreds. People I'd never met. Each one with a story about something quiet he'd done. Money for medical bills. Help with repairs. A job when they desperately needed one. Groceries that mysteriously appeared all these years. He'd been doing it constantly, sacrificing his own comfort so others could have what they needed. That was the real secret. Not just that he helped people, but that he taught me the deepest kind of love is the kind you give in secret. The kind that costs you something. The kind nobody applauds. I've tried to live that way too. It's harder than it looks. We all want credit for our goodness. We want people to know we're kind. We want the praise. But I hear Dad's voice in my head. The best kind of love is the kind nobody sees. So I give quietly. I help privately. I sacrifice without announcement because my father taught me that real kindness isn't about feeling good about yourself. It's about making someone else's burden a little lighter, even when nobody's watching, especially when nobody's watching. That's the secret we shared. The one he lived every day. The one I'm still learning, and maybe that's the greatest inheritance he left me. Not money, not property, but the understanding that the truest measure of a life is found in the quiet moments. The secret kindnesses. The gentle sacrifices nobody sees. Those weathered, gentle, patient hands of his. They were always reaching out to help. Always giving. Always loving. Just like he taught me to do.